Hello everyone and welcome to this week's plugin tutorial. Today I'm going to be going over After Effects general plugins, or at least the basics of them. These are a different type of plugin besides the normal effect plugins where you change pixels of an image, and these are more so integrated into the different menus of After Effects and can access things that normally scripting would access, like layers, compositions, all the properties therein, and much more. We can even interface with effect plugins to run sort of effect plugins from menu commands. So it goes pretty deep, and a whole bunch of the guide is dedicated just to these. So today we're going to be going over the basics of what they are, how to get started, and how to use the guide to learn more about them. Before we get started with this video, I do want to remind you down below, hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of new videos coming out twice weekly on the channel, and down in the description you can check out my GitHub for coding updates and follow us there of course, and also in the description follow us on Instagram for other live updates. If you're not already a member of our Discord server, make sure you come and join to get help with scripting, extensions, plugins, expressions, submit tutorial ideas, and much more. And of course, we have lots of awesome members who can help answer your questions there. And if you'd like to help support us on YouTube, you can do so in the description down below, the link for that. You can become a member, supporter, premium supporter, or VIP, which comes with cool perks like loyalty badges, VIP status, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. And also in the description, check out the links to AE Scripts, Gumroad, and Adobe Exchange, where I release other cool effects and plugins. So to start, what is an AEGP? An After Effects general plugin is a powerful and broad, offering functionality beyond what is available to effect plugins, which all previous tutorials on this channel have been about. To users, AEGPs can or appear to be part of After Effects. They can add, intercept, and trigger menu commands, access the keyframe database, register functions as part of After Effects internal messaging, and of course a lot more. AEGPs can add and remove items to projects and compositions, add and remove filters and keyframes. Once its command is triggered, AEGPs use the numerous Pika, which is a general sort of function suite with generalized functions that you can use, numerous Pika function suites described in the section, to work with every After Effects item. AEGPs can publish function suites for plugins, manipulate all project elements, change interpretations, replace files, and determine which external files are used to render a project. Now lastly, there are several specialized types of After Effects general plugins. There are keyframers, artisans, and input-output modules. These are super specific types of plugins that have their own sort of setup and are often very complicated. I will be making future tutorials on these, especially the very cool topic of artisans, where you can basically build your own rendering engine based on what they have there. So if you are interested in that, make sure you check out some of the example projects like RD, and I believe these other ones are also in there as well. And all these are still AEGPs, but they have access to specialized messaging streams for which they register with After Effects. But for general purposes, we're going to be talking about normal, general After Effects general plugins. I'm not going to go over everything in here, but the general idea is that with the normal generalized After Effects plugin, we can basically add an item to the menu of the user's After Effects by simply creating a plugin. And one interesting thing is that, ignoring the formatting here because I'm in PDF mode, this is where all of the AEGP stuff starts. And this goes on for a long time in the guide because there are so many different AEGP suites. Everything from accessing layers, items, compositions, all the settings and properties in there, and all of these are basically outlined and the methods are in here, and it's quite extensive. Honestly, it takes up a huge chunk of the guide, almost half of it I would say, of just all the information about After Effects general plugins and all the stuff you can access within them. So enough talking, let's go ahead and open up an example project which we can use to sort of look at how these work exactly. Now I'm going to go ahead and go into my After Effects plugin SDK folder into AEGP under examples, and we have all sorts of examples here. Like I said, we have RD, which is an artisan plugin example, and all these other ones which are super helpful for helping you learn. For our simple purposes today, we're going to open up Easy Cheese, which is sort of how we get started creating this. So the first thing you're going to notice is that the functions and all this of how this is set up is a lot different from effect plugins. Instead of an effect main, which takes commands essentially, as if you remember from a normal plugin, you normally send commands to do your rendering, to set up your variables, to set up your UI, etc. This entry point function is generally in the same location in your CPP file, but it's going to usually be called entry point function, and it's going to have different arguments. It's not going to have your normal in data, out data, params, and all that. We're going to have Pika structures, major and minor versions of our plugin ID if we have one, and a global refcon data pointer. So not to get too technical, we just need to look at certain things inside of EasyCheese in order to understand what's going on. So we're going to start by looking in our entry point function. This is where we sort of define the menu item in which this is going to be appearing under. And we can see this by saying AEGP insert menu command. This is basically taking our ID, and we can then name our plugin itself. So instead of EasyCheese, let's say we're going to add something to the file menu, and let's go ahead and add I don't know, let's just speculate and say remove all saves. Not that this is a practical thing, but we're just going to call it that. The next argument, we can actually peek the definition to see all the arguments. We need a name or command, a name, a menu ID, and an after item. Now these are super useful now, these two. If we go to peek definition of our AEGP menu, these are the different menus we can add on to in After Effects. So let's load up After Effects and see all these particular menus that we can add a menu item to for our After Effects general plugin. So we have, of course, menu none if you don't want to add it to a menu at all. I believe there are some customization type things you could do for this. If you think about Video Copilot's FX console, it seems like it could be an AEGP, and it might be because that would give you access to everything that it needs. And that might use menu none, I'm not sure. Then we have menu Apple. This is, of course, specific to Mac when you have an Apple menu aside from your file menu. Then you have the file menu, the edit menu, the composition menu, the layer menu, the effect menu, the window menu, floaters. That could also be maybe to create some kind of floating thing. I don't know all of these because there are so many, but these are the general ones. Then we have KF Assist. This is under Keyframe Assistant. So if you have a layer and you right click on it, Keyframe Assistant, it would appear in this section here. Then we have the import area, so you can actually define your own import dropdown from here if you have a special API or something. We also have access to composition save frame as, the menu prefs, export, animation, purge, and possibly if you want to create your own menu, I believe there's now support for that in recent versions, 12.0. But like I said, a lot of these I haven't explored, just the basics. Like floaters, I'm not totally sure about new. You can probably create a new menu item, and I'm not sure about those couple. So these are the kind of places we can add it. And like I said, we want to add this to the file menu. So we'll just copy and paste AEGP menu file. And now the next input is super important because we get to choose where in the menu it gets to be sorted. We can sort of sort alphabetically as it is already. So if we have remove in the file menu, and it's probably gonna find something with an R and then add it after that, or just add it basically in alphabetical order. Insert at the bottom, it's going to add it to the very bottom of the menu, and of course, insert at top, it's going to add it to the very top. So this can be very useful. For now, we're just going to do insert sorted and see where it appears. So once again, we have changed the name under insert menu command. We've also chosen the menu or the file menu precisely that it's going to be added to, and where in that file menu it's going to be organized. Then after that, we have some more setup stuff. We have a register command hook, and this is actually sort of where we're going to do the main functionality of our AEGP. So we will be going to the command hook in just a second. And then we have an update menu hook and an idle hook. These are functions that get run when your menu is updated, as well as something to do when your menu is not being used. You don't always need to have like an idle hook because sometimes if nothing is being done, well, in this case, the function itself doesn't actually do anything. It just adds one to this idle counter. And then an update menu hook, this is a section, like I said, where we're updating the actual menu itself. This could be based on some different inputs. So if I want to create a file menu which removes all the saved versions of this project, we have different situations. Well, one, I might have no project open. In that case, I might want to gray out my option so that will be done here in Update Menu Hook. We can use the AEGP suites to check if there's an active project or an active composition, and then basically disable command here, disable the command, or enable the command based on some obviously programming logic. And that's super useful because we can enable or disable our menu item based on specific project settings or things like that. And then, of course, finally in the command hook, this is sort of our main function where everything is being run. So let's see what it does here. So firstly, we set up a whole bunch of variables. These are all things we're going to be using to access the things inside of our After Effects project. For example, we have an AEGP comp type variable. We have an item type variable, a layer type, a stream reference variable, and just for future reference, because I'm not going into super depth because there's so much in After Effects general plugins, a stream is usually particularly referring to a property or its values. So this could be a position, it could be a keyframe, it could be in some cases a marker in this case. And then we have some other variables just to check the time, the number of keyframes and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into, again, super depth on everything. I'm just going to sort of skim over things, and then we're going to refer to the guide to see where all this information is coming from. So once we have all of our variables in our main command hook set up, we just have a few checks here. First, we're checking, is there a current composition open? It's actually running a function called prepare for cheese. It's a silly name, but what this function is simply doing is checking whether or not there is an active item, and then whether or not that active item is a composition. And that's basically in its own little function here, but it's using AEGP suites. Then once we make sure we have an active item or an active comp, we're going to make sure that we have an active layer. So we're going to use this function also built in called get layer to be cheesed, and it's going to get this layer by an index. As you can see, these are kind of like scripting functions. Get comp layer by index, given this composition, this layer index, and this layer object, which we're going to use to store that layer in. So these are just accessing down into the project. Then we just have a whole bunch of other functions that do stuff here, whether it be accessing the streams, the keyframes, or the markers. We don't really want to do that in this particular case. I'm going to remove a fair bit of this stuff here, just so we can see basically some of the useful functionality and how we access it. So these go off into other functions, which I'm not too big of a fan of. I like just having the suites, whatever the suite name is, and then the function here. Anytime you need to create the suites, you just need to define an AEGP suite handler and call it whatever you need. And then all you do is you call suites dot the suite name itself, and then you do this method call. I believe this is just generating like a function or accessing the functions or methods within this suite, and then the name of the function. And if you right click on any of these, you can open up the file and see all of them here that quite frankly are too many to count. So if we wanted to go ahead and look in the guide, we'll go ahead and let's say we want to access the project suite. First thing we have are some basic methods to get like the number of projects, get the project name, get the project path, and things like that. And we can do any of these, and we know that it's in the After Effects General Plugin Project Suite 6. There are many suites of each kind, so sometimes you do need to be wary of that. So if I wanted to actually call one of these functions, just as an illustration here, we need to make sure we're back in our command hook. You can see we'll get the syntax here. We can always say error is equal to something because generally we want to have an error variable, because if something errors, we want to know particularly what the error was and what function it's coming from. So we'll say error is equal to suites, and then when we hit dot, we have access to all of the suites here. These are all of our AEGP suites we have access to. In this case, we know what we want to access is in the AEGP Project Suite 6. We don't need to type in AEGP, just this second part. So we'll say Project suite, and we can see we have project suite 5 and project suite 6. Then we'll give it open and close parentheses and a pointer character here, and this will give us access to all the methods built in. So we can simply say like AEGP new project, and you don't have to check the guide. It looks like we just need to provide it with a project object, a pointer to it. So we need to actually create one. Let's go ahead and, is it hidden from me in this view? I need to go to the non-PDF version to get access to this. I just want to see what the data type is. So we need to create a new AEGP project H, and we'll just call this proj. Then we will go ahead and give it a pointer to our proj, and that should be good. I'm going to get rid of the code I don't want. And now we're just going to try and make this, even though it says we're going to remove all the saved projects, we're going to make a new project with this project object. So to test this, we can test it like a normal effect plugin. I need to make sure that I'm connected to my version of After Effects. So under debugging, browse, go to my After Effects, exe, okay. And assuming we have no errors, we should now be able to hit play to debug and test this in After Effects. And in this case, we're getting the Windows ignore packing mismatch thing. And from what I remember, this is because of one of two things. Could be the treat warning as errors. We'll set that to no. And if it's not, I believe it is it's like I forget the name of it. I'll find it here. The struct member alignment should be default, I believe. That's probably not as big of a problem on other systems. On Macs, I need to close After Effects first as well so that this can load properly. So what we're going to basically do is we're going to open up a project and then see if when we run this, it closes that and generates this new project based on the AEGP command we give it. So I can just create a new project here with some dummy content. We'll save this as test. Now, if I go to File, let's see if we can find our new menu command. Here we are. Remove all saves. It's right here, just under close project and above save as, which is actually kind of convenient. I don't know if the sorting actually is alphabetical or if it looks for similar words and maybe it sees save and it puts it next to the other saves. I'm not sure. So now if we hit remove all saves, you can see we are basically running a script command. We just opened a new project, and in fact it is successfully done so and is going to now be stored in this project item. And you can go through and access all the different suites and basically create a plugin that runs functionality that's like a script, and then go forth and look at all these crazy hundreds of pages of suites in here and end up learning about things that you can render out cached frames, bring those in, run some operations, and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's actually hard for me to kind of communicate how large AEGPs are, but it's good enough to know that there's this entire section on them and that you can access everything that a script could access and sometimes more. You can automate all of that. You have access to a whole bunch of functions that aren't in scripts or extensions in different suites. You have suites covering everything you could ever think of in After Effects. Basically, the guide is your best friend for learning how much there is to learn about all this, because there's so much. And that's kind of the basics of what I wanted to cover today, the basic kind of After Effects general plugin. In the future, of course, I will be going over things like artisans, keyframers, input-output modules. But for now, that's going to cover the basics of creating After Effects general plugins. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the thumbs up button down below, hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of new videos coming out twice weekly in the channel. And down in the description, you can check out my GitHub, follow us there for coding updates, and in the description, follow us on Instagram for other live updates. If you're not already a member of our Discord server, make sure you come and join to get help with scripting, extensions, plugins, submit tutorial ideas, and much more. And if you'd like to help support us on YouTube, you can do so in the description down below by becoming a member, supporter, premium supporter, or VIP, which comes with awesome perks and helps us financially. And also check out the links in the description for Adobe Exchange, AE Scripts, and Gumroad to check out some of the other plugins and tools I create. Thanks again for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.